You're listening to the A Bit From Within podcast with Felicia Marty.
Let's try to be okay with the moments of transition in our life, especially as things change. We're not going to have everything we need. We're not going to have all of this stuff. We may not even have all of the knowledge. Be gracious with yourself. Give yourself permission to be a learner, to be, just humble in that process, and to have an open heart. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining me today for a new episode of the A Bit From Within podcast. My name is Felicia Marty. I am a self-care specialist as well as certified astrologer, and every week I come here to share a little bit from within. One of the things that I am constantly reassuring myself and telling my clients is that it's the little changes that we can make that make the biggest difference in our life. So often we fall into this mental trap that we have to change everything all at once, or we have to see a significant difference in how we're behaving or how our lives are in order for us to believe that things are changing, that things are different than they were, especially for the things that we're struggling with. And more often than not, that is not the case. It is usually a series of little things that we can commit to or start to feel out in our reality, start to become used to, that end up leading to those big shifts that we are needing, that we are craving. And that is why I come here every week to share a little bit from within, because it's usually not in the sharing of everything and having everything figured out. Honestly, sometimes it's just zooming in on one little piece, talking through something, a part of the truth that is happening inside of you. Once that part gets straightened out, then there's room for something else inside of you to kind of start to change and move and be fluid with, right? So it's a constant give and take. And I love this idea that if we can just honor a bit from within, a bit of our truth, stand in it, acknowledge it, that then big shifts happen in our lives. And I have seen this absolutely true in my life over the past, it's been 3 years since I started this podcast. This podcast was a product of the pandemic of 2020. Finally had the space and time to figure it out and get it launched, and kept up with it every single week since. Although, except for last week, if you guys happen to notice, there was no episode last week. And that is because as many of you know, if you've been listening for a while, or if you're new, thank you for joining, and I'll catch you up. I have recently moved across the country, and that process has included, physically packing up the car and driving the dogs and myself to our new home location, meeting my partner here. He had to take a separate trip out here to actually look at all of the houses that we were wanting to get under contract for. We found a house. When we already went under contract before I was actually able to see it. And when I got here, the second day I was here, we went through the house, absolutely fell in love with it. That was a really good feeling to know that, okay, no, I do love this house. I had a feeling I would, but it's nice to confirm that for yourself. And then we spent the next, I think it was like three weeks in an Airbnb. It felt like longer than that. We had Mercury retrograde in the middle of all of this. We finally closed, and I do have to say that I had to put myself in the vulnerable position of asking for the close when I did. I think most people, and myself included, my normal personality is to just wait for things to happen. Don't be intrusive, or don't be pushy, don't be bossy, don't be demanding. But on the other hand, the amount of stress and pressure that Dave and I have been under, and the amount of things that were coming to an absolute close that were going to make our lives just absolutely insane if we didn't close, it definitely outweighed my fear of rejection of it not happening. It was just like, I have to ask for this, because if I don't, it's going to be a significantly worse for me than, I wasn't expecting it, but what I basically had to do is just really keep on top of calling the lender, asking, hey, what else do you need? Oh, might need this. Boom. Had my insurance agent send over that document just in case they need it. Okay, well, what else might need? We need, okay, you're not sure if this can happen from underwriting. Well, do you mind just asking? And, she was so sweet, and she kept saying to me, I just want you to remember that this is possible, but it's not realistic. And I think that was all I needed to keep asking, is that she just kept telling me it was possible. And I just kind of also tried to tell myself, okay, she is also telling me it's not realistic. I don't want to be, what's the right word? Like, I don't want to be naive about this process, that it might not work out. But she just kept saying that word, that is possible. And I just kept thinking, okay, well then I'm just going to do everything I can to make sure that if it is possible, that we're lined up to get there. And I know it was a real push for everyone. I know that the people who did the closing had to make some real changes in our schedule to make it happen. I know that people had to push things through, and our real estate agent had to fit us in for our final walkthrough at the very last minute. We basically found out we were going to close 48 hours in advance. So that was wild. It was also wild for us, because as much as we were pushing for it, we also couldn't count on it. So suddenly being like, oh my gosh, now we have to change the Airbnb reservation. Now we have to go. I honestly, it feels like months ago, and it was only like a week and a few days ago. So just, it's hard to remember all of those little details, but even just like picking up our pod had to be the closest location that they stored pods was more than 2.5 hours away from us. So coordinating the U-Haul to go pick up that stuff, like just, oh my gosh, it was insane. And we did it. We got here after we closed. We walked around the house like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is ours. We moved in some of our stuff from the Airbnb. And then Dave and I, we weren't going to sleep here that night because we didn't have our bed or anything, but we got a fresh bunch of sage out, and we just walked through the house really slowly, saging each room and just inviting any old energy that didn't need to be here anymore just to be released, and just to welcome in all of these new blessings, all of this gratitude that we're meeting this place with, all of the, just coming to it humbly, saying like, we're going to learn so much in this space, and our hearts are open. We're ready to create new memories, ready to grow into this house, ready to be the best team ever in this house, and just to invoke all of this just intention for good relationships, for connection, for helping others, for having abundance, for cultivating more opportunity, and for a life filled with happiness. And it felt amazing to do that in the first space. And there were a lot of tears involved, just a little bit of overwhelm, so much gratitude. And we were able to just kind of close out that little moment, that little new house ritual, go home and get a couple hours of sleep in, and then wake up bright and early to move the dogs over here and get on the road to go get our pod. And it's like I said, it's been a whirlwind since then. So I did tell you that I'm going to share with you where I'm living, what decided to bring me to this part of the country, and a little bit more about this whole process. But first, we do need to have our normal astro check-in. So what the heck is happening astrologically? Oh, well, the first thing I can say is that we are finally we've made it through Mercury retrograde. That started end of May. I believe it was May 21st, and it finally moved back direct yesterday, May 14th. And I will be the first to say, and I know there's other astrologers who are saying this too, that the last 3 weeks of this Mercury retrograde, they kicked our butts. It was intense. In fact, one of the things I found myself feeling, actually, it was the day that I moved a bunch of our supplements back from our Airbnb into this house. I dropped off, I set it down, and I was looking through it. because why look through it before then? Look through it now. And all of a sudden I found this like dog ear cleaner. And I just stopped and my face got this like, my lips crinkled together because not a week and a half earlier, I had noticed that my puppy Nash had been, shaking his ear ferociously. I could see it. Something was going on with it. And so, of course, this was like 10 o'clock at night. As I looked in it, and it was just filled with, dark wax. And I mean, it wasn't like, oh my God, take him to the emergency vet type, but it was like, oh no, this is definitely not good. So had I had that ear medicine, I could have just addressed it right then. But instead, I had to go to Walgreens in the middle of the night. And we were, busy doing other things. So I had to pause what I was doing, go to the store, get some gauze, get some, distilled water, try to clean out the ear. The next day I had to go to PetSmart and get some, I forget what it's called, but it's like a medicated over-the-counter type of ear cleaner. And that was a whole process too, because I had to return something and then get that. And it was just a lot going on. So did that. Luckily, he got a lot better after that. But it was just one of those things where over that, 24-hour period, there was so much that had to happen involving getting his ear addressed, which again, now that I'm saying this, I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like that much. But in the moment, with everything else going on with work and the move and, life, it felt like another added layer of stress, like running around, kind of going through hoops, trying to figure this problem out, when all along the ear medication had been right there in the house. I just didn't think it made it in the move. And I feel like the moment that happened, I was like, this is such a Mercury in retrograde type of moment. It's like you look for things in places that you just don't know where to look. It's like things just don't coordinate easily. Nothing has felt easy over the last 3 weeks. And it's not just me. I'm hearing this across the board from friends, from family, stories about like just things falling behind, communication being really off, people having a hard time connecting, talking to each other, weather being extremely unpredictable right now. That kind of causes you to feel like things aren't moving forward. There's a lot of backwards energy that is feeling like it's happening. I'm noticing it also in work environments with clients. It just communication feels like things are kind of seeming to roll backwards. And I do think that is coming to an end now. And it probably won't be like straight out of the gate this early this week, but I think you'll notice it towards the end of this week and as we continue through May, that things are going to pick back up and things are going to start to fall into place. And I will say the other great thing about this is that we're having a lot of other planetary shifts that are happening this week. So actually Tuesday, the day that this gets released publicly, Jupiter is moving into Taurus. And this is a beautiful shift. We've had Jupiter in Aries for the last year-ish, I think since May of 2022. And Jupiter it's a slower moving planet. It usually stays in its sign for about just under a year at a time. With Jupiter and Taurus, this is the time where we're going to get our luckiest, when we're going to see the most abundance and good fortune in our life, the more we slow down and we tap into our roots. Okay, so this is not a time for being, it is a time for being cautious. It's not a time for being really risky and playing, fast and loose. It's not a time for doing things off of impulse, but instead a time for doing things that are really calculated, methodical, working hard. Where you're going to put your energy into is where you're going to see things come out of it. This is very much Jupiter and Taurus. They're going to have a lot of good fortune in these areas. And the coolest part about this shift is that right as we head into this week and we feel this shift, we're also coming up on our new moon, which is also in Taurus. And I'm a little bit like preferential to a Taurus new moon or even a Taurus full moon because I have moon in Taurus myself. So I'm I love it. I feel a connection with this. And I feel like having this new moon in Taurus is going to be another moment in our lives. It's so perfect for, I mean, obviously this happens every spring, right? It happens every time the sun is in Taurus. Whenever the new moon moves into Taurus, we have a Taurus new moon. This happens once a year. And a Taurus new moon is just absolutely perfect for spring energy. It's like we're going to be sowing the seeds of the things that we're willing to work on over the course of the next 6 months. So just as you are maybe outside planting little seeds in the ground and you're going to be cultivating those, you're going to be caring for those, that is the kind of intentions that you're going to want to set for this new moon in Taurus. And this is a really cool one because we're coming right off the heels of an eclipse. And so last month, we didn't really set those intentions. We kind of let our universe shift and change. And so as you're coming through this, as you're realizing, oh my gosh, things have just been wild, or so much is changing in my life, and I'm seeing all of this, what's the right word? Just you're looking at reality in a new way because things have changed so much. This is the time for you to kind of regroup, and you don't have to have all the answers. Maybe you start with the intentions around the values you know you want to have moving forward, or just that tiny little piece, that sliver of, oh, I want to feel like this. Or you have maybe just one visual. I want to sit in a quiet place. I want to have more space. I want to be able to be outside more. You know, whatever it is for you, start with what you know. And I think for this new moon in Taurus energy, the more that you can kind of point your eyes or point your intention towards being outdoors, being in a place where you're slowing down, or working really hard towards something that you're not just like sprinting after, but rather like moving slowly and steadily towards. These are the things that are going to pay off. Also, anything that has to do with nutrition. If you've been really needing to make some shifts to your diet or to different health goals, that's a great thing to do. Or even improving your environment. So Taurus is ruled by Venus. And so Venus is this planet of love, of beauty. It absolutely, when you're trying to improve your aesthetics of your place, Venus is a great planet to call upon. Taurus is a great place to do those things. And also, part of what improves an aesthetic is not only how things look, but also how things feel. So if you're wanting to maybe put some effort and intention into your relationships, if you're wanting to put some intention and effort into the quality of sensuality that you feel in your life, so slowing down to really smell the garden, to notice the spices that you're putting into your food, cuddling up with that blanket on the couch, feeling your feet in the dirt, things that really invoke a sensation in your body. This kind of work is going to allow whatever you're planting, whatever your intentions are, to really come to full bloom in a way that wouldn't come as fast or as easily, because you're going to be aligned with the planetary elements that are already moving around you. Now, of course, all of this kind of does connect to your own personal astrology. So if you have a lot of planets that square this energy, you might feel like yourself kind of maybe that it's challenging. If you've got a lot of opposition, maybe a lot of Scorpio in your chart, maybe you're just feeling a push and pull, like you're kind of torn between what you should do or what feels comfortable for you. But either way, I think all of this is worth exploring. This is part of the reason why every month I create a new self-care guide, and that's going to be coming out this month before Friday's new moon. So I usually drop it a day or two in advance, so you have just enough time to read through it, to kick it off with your new moon ritual, and then to continue to look through the guide. We are at this time of year where right after the new moon, the sun actually is moving into a new sign itself. So we've got this Taurus new moon, and then boom, sun is going to move into Gemini. So I'm going to have a lot in this guide about Gemini self-care and how you can kind of start to feel out the next wave of spring energy. It's actually, Gemini is a mutable sign. It's the last sign that takes us into a new season. So we're almost to our last month before summer. Can you guys believe it? I feel like things have just been flying by. Although that is the energy of spring. So I'll leave it there. Please, if you are interested in that lunar self-care guide, join our Patreon. We have several different layers of membership that include different things, but the base layer where you can get ad-free episodes of this podcast along with that monthly lunar self-care guide is $3 a month, and that money goes directly into being able to support me being able to do this work. And I'm so grateful for all of my patron members. In fact, we had as you kind of move up in membership, we have our yoga tier where twice a month we meet up virtually and do a live gentle yoga class and have just a bit of connection beforehand. And for the past month and a half, I haven't been able to do that while I've been in the Airbnb. Actually, I keep thinking it's longer than it was. I was probably an entire month, not a month and a half, just a month. But that time just feels like it's stretching out right now. But anyway, yesterday, or it was over the weekend, Saturday, we had our first live yoga class now that I'm here in my new home, and it felt so good. It was everything that I thought it was going to be, just to be in a room with so much natural light, have the space to set up the camera, record. All of those live classes get recorded separately, like outside of the Zoom. I just record them on my phone and put them together, upload them, and put them into the library. So on the Patreon, we've got like over 100 different gentle yoga classes, guided meditations, and all of that is going to keep up and keep moving. So if you're interested, you can check it out at patreon.com/abitfromwithin. That's patreon.com/abitfromwithin. Patreon, if you don't know, is a website for all different kinds of creators where you subscribe specifically to somebody's channel. You pay a small fee that goes directly to them to support their work. And then you get access to all different things. So on our Patreon, it's yoga, meditation, these self-care guides, and the podcast. And sometimes a couple other things sprinkled in too throughout the year, but that's the main core offering. All right, let's take a quick break and then come back and chat more about A Bit From Within moving across the country. Yes, so as I'm recording this, it's a Monday morning. I'm looking out my window that looks out into my backyard, and I'm watching the dogs play. We are so lucky. One of the things that we really desperately wanted in our next house is to have land. We were very flexible about what that meant. It could be a big yard, it could be acreage, it could be we just wanted space. We wanted to feel like we weren't right up against our neighbors. We wanted to feel like we could put up a fence and like the dogs could just go run. We wanted space to be able to create a garden, maybe someday have some chickens. I really wanted to get into being able to grow some flowers and have trees and all of that. And we love to spend time outside, but we've really never been able to cultivate that because we've always lived in apartments, or our last house was a townhome. And I'm not the kind of outdoorsy girl that is going to sit in traffic for a couple hours to go for a hike. And, that was one of those things that as I really started to consider leaving Colorado, that I just had to really sit with, because I can't tell you the amount of people that I've run into that have said, why would you leave Colorado? Everybody loves Colorado. Everyone I know wants to move to Colorado. And I think, yeah, that's perfect. And the people that I've met that absolutely love Colorado, who love to move to Colorado, are people who want to be in the mountains every weekend, and they don't care about traffic. And that is just not me. And I have felt a little bit silly admitting this, but how bad traffic has gotten in Denver is probably one of the absolute top reasons for me wanting to leave Colorado. When it used to take, like 10 minutes to run to a Target or to the grocery store, or, just run errands around town, like you could get that done in a reasonable amount of time, like maybe an hour to run errands. When that started taking closer to like 2.5 or a half a day, just to not even go that far, like not go across the city, but just just to be in your own neighborhood, like I knew that something needed to change for me because it was putting such just a complete stress on my life. Like I just felt like nothing was easy. It wasn't easy to go anywhere. It wasn't easy to get anything done. And I desperately needed out of that situation. So I knew that I wanted to move to a much smaller town. So Dave and I began conversations around, well, where can we move? Where can we move that is a smaller, cozier vibe? So we looked at Billings, Montana. I have a lovely friend who lives there who told us all about it. We were totally sold on it. We actually found this house that we absolutely loved. And right as we were moving into the stages of finding a realtor out there, that house got sold. And so we looked a little bit more. We were really considering it, and then things kind of just shifted away from that. We also looked at South Carolina. I have another dear friend who lives there, who absolutely loves it, where she's at. Great school district, some other positive things that we were considering. And just to say, there are plenty of challenges with any area you're going to look. And there are people, no matter what, who are going to say, you should never move there. Or people are always going to tell you their opinion about where you should move based on their opinion about where they want to live. I've learned that in this process. But where we ultimately decided to move to is the place and the area where Dave grew up. So we are in upstate New York. We are, and not where you normally think. So it's not, Buffalo or Rochester or Syracuse or anything like that. We are up really close to the border and the highway that takes you up to Montreal. So the major city up here is called Plattsburgh. And we're so happy to be in this area. Plattsburgh is like the biggest city, I say that in quotes, in this area. It is, I think it's 19,000 people. It's big enough that it has, the essentials, right? Like a couple different grocery stores, a Target, a Sam's Club, Starbucks, pizza, food, all of that. It even has a performing arts center. We actually were able to go to a community musical. We went and saw The Sound of Music put on by one of the local theater companies. And so, yeah, there's lots of good stuff happening in this area, but it's just smaller. To get all the way across town to run errands, it takes like 15 minutes max. And the best part about that is there's no traffic. The most infuriating part is when you have to, sit at a light for a minute, which feels so good. It's just that part has been just such a confirmation that I'm exactly where I need to be. And the house that we ultimately found and ended up being ours it is a absolute dream for us. It has every single thing that we were looking for, minus like really big bathrooms. That's just not a thing that it has, and that's okay. It has other features that are just so perfect that outweighed that. And that's how it always is when you're looking for a new area or a new house or a new place. It's like you have to have your list of must-haves and then like the things that you're willing to negotiate on. And what really drew us to this place in particular, it has so much space for us to grow into. Like I said, it more than doubled the bedrooms we had at our last place. Dave and I each have our own separate offices in different parts of the house, which is absolutely incredible. It's like we don't have to hear each other on our work calls. It has so much yard. In fact, the people that used to live here, you can tell they absolutely loved gardening. There are so many trees, so many flower beds. We haven't even begun to really figure out how we're going to, we got a lawnmower, and Dave's been every single weekend cutting all of the yard to make sure that it looks really good. But everything else, we're just kind of slowly trying to keep up with. I will say that I did last week in the morning before work, popped in a bunch of little sweet pea seeds out in front of our house. And I'm just figured this is an empty flower bed. We'll just see what happens. If it doesn't happen this year, that's okay. It just moved in here. That's totally okay. But there's so much here. There's garden beds filled with hostas. I think there's some hydrangea plants. I wanted to plant some hydrangeas. I committed to myself that I probably wasn't going to add too much to this year, but just try to figure out what's already here. If you follow me on social media, you saw the gorgeous bunch of tulips that I posted last week. Those all had, I think, shifted out of one of the flower beds and were sprouting in the middle of the yard. And so as we were getting ready to mow back there, I cut them all, and they were, oh my gosh, all of last week, they were so gorgeous. In fact, all of the ones that were like orange and yellow and red, those ended up wilting, but I still have all of the purple and pink ones still in a vase, and they're so pretty. I can see them from where I'm sitting right now. And in fact, just the area where we were able to put up a temporary fence for the dogs, they are so happy. They can just run and chase each other and play out there. And it has been, we've never had that before. And what that did for my heart, I can't even describe it. Just the level of like peace and contentment. And that's, I feel like over the past week that we've finally, crossed the finish line and got into the house, it's been a really interesting mix of emotions. There's this feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I have to pause for a second and share that two of the biggest reasons that kind of reconfirmed this for me, because, I'm leaving my home. I'm leaving where, generations of my family grew up. I'm moving to an area that I don't have a lot of family from around here. Dave does. This is where his roots are from. But for me, when we toured the property at first, it was March, so everything was still very dead. And when we pulled up to the house after we moved to the area, and we had already been under contract, but before we had closed on the house, we pulled up in front of the house, and I realized that our driveway has all of these lilacs near it. And lilacs, although I've been reminded are a very common flower, are one of these, again, just a dream that was inside of me that I think was like I hadn't fully realized until it was there, because my grandmother had tons of lilacs on her property growing up, and I always associated lilacs with my grandma. And and then my mom has lilacs in her backyard. And so just this connection to the women on my mom's side felt amazing, and loved that so much. And then, last week when I was out in the backyard, I'm watching for all of these signs of life. I'm watching every little leaf that sprouts up. What are you going to be? And there was all of these green leaves in one of our back flower beds, and I had no idea what it was. I didn't know if they were a flower coming up or what. And then all of a sudden, a couple days later, I was looking at them, and I saw these little blooms, like tiny little blooms on them, and it clicked, and I realized that they're all lilies of the valley. And my grandmother also had lilies of the valley in her house, and they can be very hard to grow. They have to have just the right growing conditions. And so it's also very hard to, from what I've read about and what I've chatted about with my mom, it's just hard to cultivate them and figure out how to get them started. And so to have literally hundreds of lilies of the valley in my yard, it was just another sign that was like, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. It's strange how signs work, right? I'm just remembering that moment of realizing that. And then when I FaceTimed my mom and showed her and the expression on her face, it was so cool. So I'm enjoying all of that. And that was a big part of what we wanted. We wanted more space. We wanted a place where we could easily grow a family and build a family here. And right now, the other thing that I'm feeling besides just gratitude and like landing, that feeling of like, oh, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, is I'm also feeling a just tremendous amount of pressure to get it all figured out, because I am so over the feeling of instability. I'm so over the feeling of transition. And I just know we're so far from that. For the past week, so none of our chairs made it in the move. So for the past week, we've sat on piano benches at the dining room table. We somehow lost all of the legs to our couch in our move. I have no idea if they're still packed in a box. I feel like I've gone through everything. I suppose there's always a way that things are just hiding from you. But yeah, the legs to our couch never made it. And when I called to get replacement legs, they said 4 to 6 months. So we bought some cheapy legs off of Amazon and are trying to make that work. We definitely need like some rugs in this place because it feels just so empty, but it's just going to be slow going. It's going to take us some time to reestablish ourselves financially after a move. And I'm trying to just really remember the transition time. And honestly, I'm just so looking forward to this new moon in Taurus because I need to carve out some serious time just to slow down and readjust and to land and to start to put some of my own roots down, things that I can focus on over the month ahead that will just help root me and help me remember that it doesn't have to be perfect out of the gate. It's okay if the neighbors don't get invited in right now. And it's okay if it's going to take another few years for Dave and I to figure out how we want this house to be and to find all of the right pieces to add to the house. We didn't move here with, another house of the same square footage that we could bring all of that stuff to. And I felt some shame around that, which is really funny. Is that a silly thing to feel shameful about? I feel kind of like an imposter in this house. Like, I don't even have enough stuff for this house. But at the same time, like, this is exactly how I would rather have it. Like, if I had to pick the path, this is the path that I would want to take because I don't want to bring a bunch of old stuff into this house. I mean, even our couch, it was perfect for our old house. I mean, I just loved it. And now I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't even know that you belong here. I don't even know that you're the couch. And I'm feeling that about so many things right now. And I can't do anything about it in this moment, right? Like, it's just going to take time. I'm watching these dogs outside right now. It's going to take time for me to teach my puppy to not dig a hole in the yard. He's just started working on one. I'll breathe into that. So I guess that's probably where I'm going to leave it today. I don't know that there was any, major lessons or big takeaways in this one other than, if I had to really just distill everything I'm feeling right now into a single message, it's just I'm feeling behind and I'm feeling exactly where I'm supposed to be. And in some ways, I'm also feeling ahead because I never thought that we would have this house now. And I guess I'll just add on that before we decided to move to New York, Dave and I spent several months working with our realtor looking at houses in Colorado. And we had to have a really serious conversation that, the only thing we could afford in Colorado would be the next step to the house we really want. We'd probably only be able to afford a 3-bedroom, which basically just took care of giving him and I our own office, and we'd have no space to start to grow a family. And, we were like, well, we could do that and like keep a baby in our own room, or one of us could find a separate office space. And then we tried to figure that out. It wouldn't have been the end of the world, right? But it wasn't what we wanted. And I will say that after doing this move, I absolutely know I do not want to do this again anytime soon. I have no interest in maybe ever moving again. In fact, I love this house so much that like when we're away from it for a few hours doing errands, like I just want to get home. I love being home. And it's not even home yet. Right now it feels like it feels like a house that is ready to become our home. And it's going to happen slowly but surely. So I guess all of that being said, let's try to be okay with the moments of transition in our life, especially as things change. We're not going to have everything we need. We're not going to have all of this stuff. We may not even have all of the knowledge. I'm feeling that right now as I can't figure out how to get my dishwasher to work. I'm like, I just do not have the knowledge for this. That's where we're at. Okay, but you know what? I do know how to hand wash dishes and can do that right now. But we may not have it all figured out. We may not know how to live without certain people around. If people are moving, we may not know how to welcome new family members into our life. If you have new people coming into your life, you may not know how to exist within a new team or at a new job, or just whatever it is you're going through. Maybe you're in a new city, or you're in a new role, or you're just welcoming in a new phase of your life, a new transition, new activities. Whatever that is, big or small, be gracious with yourself. Give yourself permission to be a learner, to be, just humble in that process, and to have an open heart, because the things that you are wanting, that you are working towards, you deserve them. So just be easy on yourself through that process and keep your heart open as you plant all of your intentions and as you move forward. So as we close today's episode, I know that for the past 2 months, all of my deck, my oracle cards have been packed up. But guess what? They're not packed up anymore. So we are going to end this episode with a card drawing, and I have the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit deck here with me. This is one of our favorites of all of our Patreon members. So let's just take a nice deep breath and see what else the universe wants to contribute to today's conversation. So 2 cards flew out here. Firefly and Cosmic Egg. Let's read Firefly first. The firefly contains the light of 1,000 stars. It's pure, radiant, and illuminating. This high-frequency charge cannot be sustained for long. Therefore, the Firefly card indicates a moment of inspiration or awakening that quickly fades if we do not catch it. There is Firefly energy behind every poem, song, and invention. Our job is to be ready to harness this creative spirit when it graces our path. And then the Cosmic Egg. This is actually the final card in the Animal Spirit deck, and it represents the unfolding of cosmic consciousness. This state emerges after we tread the path for quite some time, and through self-effort and grace, we experience self-realization. A sense of contentment and oneness spontaneously arises within us, and the veils of our self-limiting beliefs are lifted. When the essence of the cosmic egg has not been activated, we may feel as if we'll never get there, or that we'll travel alone, disconnected from others. Even if our encounter with this card is brief, appearing as a momentary glimmer or flash of interconnectedness, its potent energy stays with us. The cosmic egg is a remedy for the fragmentation of modern life. It's through the power of this card that we are reminded of the cosmic contract within. At the beginning, we hold on to life, and that life holds on to us. The journey is complete, but it does not end. That just gave me chills. Oh, that couldn't have been more perfect with this podcast episode. And I just want to say all of that is written by Kim Kranz. She's the author of this beautiful deck. If you don't have it, absolutely check out the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit deck. It comes with a guidebook that is a description of each card, and it is magical. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure to tune in next week and every Tuesday through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And then it drops on Mondays for all Patreon members. Take care of yourself, be there for yourself, and honor a bit from within you.